Today on Rainbow Country, trans documentary, Man-Made, plus trans activist Susan Gapka and subversive rock group Random Order. Stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio Toronto style right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, I'm Garrett Conley, author of Boy Erased, a memoir. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara on CIUT 89.5 FM.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Rainbow Country, as I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community. And as always, I am your tour guide for Rainbow Country. I'm Mark Tara. So, CIUT's fall membership drive on-air campaign is officially done. I just want to say a heartfelt thank you for those of you that took the time to donate to CIUT. Much, much appreciated. Just so that you know, CIUT has been broadcasting on the FM dial now for over 32 years. We have a listenership of over 200,000 per week on the FM dial. And our signal goes from Barrie to Buffalo, Kitchener to Cobourg, and everything in between. And we have been on air for over 32 years because of your support. So again, thank you. Oh, and by the way, last week, Rainbow Country was number 2 on Podomatic's gay and lesbian chart. And that is because of you. So my friends, this is episode 177 today, Man-Made, a new documentary about transgender male bodybuilders. I chat with director T. Cooper about his new documentary that's out now on streaming services. Plus, local trans activist Susan Gapka and Lynx, founder of subversive rock group Random Order. But up first, the new trans documentary, Man-Made.
So often in my life, just surviving was an accomplishment. Just taking a shower, just not killing myself was an accomplishment.
Making muscles in the mirror when you're 4 years old and thinking that's what you're going to grow up to be. I mean, it's just making that 4-year-old in the mirror match.
So let's bring the lightweights on stage. I wasn't really sure if I was going to do it until I actually walked into the doors.
You feel trapped for a long time. Real trapped. The world just opened up. Just felt free.
It's definitely going to be a showdown tonight. We got some tight bodies.
Know that all these people, they all had the same courage you had to stand up there being judged by the world and not care. I've been called every name in the book, but I am doing what I need to do to be my authentic self.
That's me. Oh my God.
I was sent to the pastor and called out in the middle of a church, dabbed some holy oil on his hand and started slapping me on the head and praying for demons to come out.
Give me a big though. I missed you.
I miss you too, Mama.
We're all different. We all have different stories. We all transition differently.
I wouldn't want him to not be himself because I might not be attracted to him anymore. He was my person, I thought.
How can you not be okay with your kid being happy? Dead kid or kid? Boy or girl, I don't care.
We're not monsters. We're not demons. We're humans just like everybody else. We're just a little different.
I guess there's a time in your life where you want to stop hiding and just kind of live your life and not care what people think.
Thank you, gentlemen. Y'all give them a big hand.
It's just nice to be called what I want to be called.
T, hi, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I am well. Okay, first of all, Man-Made, your award-winning documentary. I've seen it, loved it, emotional, well done. You are the filmmaker, T. In your words, what is this film about?
Well, simply, it's about 4 transgender males who happen to be bodybuilders, and it follows their very different lives and very different paths on the way to compete in the only all transgender bodybuilding competition in the world, which happens to take place in Atlanta, Georgia. But the guys are from all over the country and obviously come to the competition from all different experiences, both trans experiences and life experiences. So, to me, yes, that's the super specific, one-liner or maybe two-liner. But to me, it's just about what it means to be human and become who you're meant to be.
And in regards to the idea of this documentary, how did you come up with the idea for this film?
Well, actually, I moved to Atlanta part-time about 5 years ago, right when the first competition ever took place. And I saw some imagery of it. Someone sent me some imagery, and it was just a few guys in a bar, downtown Atlanta. And it just, I don't know, it just struck me how, not only just how beautiful it was, but just how so many different body types and experiences and shapes and sizes and versions of masculinity were represented on stage. And so, immediately my first thought, my background is in writing, is, mostly a novelist, but also a journalist. My first impulse was to write about it. And so I kind of pitched some stories around, and some publications that I worked with are super interested. But then when I started doing all this additional research like you do into the subjects, it just became really clear to me that it needed a 360 degree treatment, and more than just a few words on each character, because their lives are just so, outside of being transgender, we're so many things besides being transgender. And, this film and these guys' lives are really a testament to that. So, yeah, I just kind of figured a way to beg, borrow, and steal, and, learn how to use a camera and run audio, and just kind of started traveling around the country and following their lives.
So you mentioned earlier TransFitCon, the only all trans bodybuilding competition in the world, held in Atlanta, Georgia. How did you hear about this competition? How did you hear about this?
I mean, I just, kind of word of mouth, like trans word of mouth. I saw those initial pictures, and then I heard that another competition was happening, and that's when I started asking around. And the second year was actually much bigger than the first. There were more competitors, and, I just, you find out about it the way you do. And, the people who were doing the competition, it was just a real little known corner of the trans population, which is just, folks who not only are interested in transforming their bodies, as trans people to live more authentically and more closely with, their gender identity, but also, to transform their bodies in this kind of health way, and shaping your body literally and figuratively. So, yeah, I mean, as a metaphor, it was just instantly fascinating as a writer to me. But again, like I said, their lives were just so much more than either bodybuilding or being trans. And, trans guys don't get a ton of attention. And as a trans man myself, I feel like I don't see my stories out there a lot, especially not told authentically. And I just felt like I was the guy to do it.
So in the documentary, you essentially follow 4 trans male bodybuilders. There's Dominic, Mason, Reese, and Kenny. And partway through, you also bring in Tommy. How did you end up meeting these individuals?
Well, actually, so some of them were in the original competition that I filmed. I filmed a couple of competitions, basically. Yeah, I filmed one, and then I filmed the next one that they were all, prepping for. And then one guy was new. Mason just enrolled, and he was out there, actually. Mason is really unique, or he was at the time, and he was, I think the only trans male who was competing in cisgender, just AKA traditional mainstream bodybuilding competition. So when he heard about that there was a trans one, he was like, so excited to compete among, his brothers, because he'd been competing stealthily in mainstream competition. So I found out about him and started following him. And then Tommy actually literally was a surprise, which is why he doesn't occupy as much time in the film. But when we got to the second competition, he was just there. No one saw him coming. No one knew him. And, as you know from seeing it, he's just like a huge guy. Like, he surprised everybody and just kind of came out of nowhere. And, he's from Miami and has a really supportive, cool family, like Panamanian American family. And, he just was kind of like a little extra bonus that we ran into just through the course of filming.
And were there other individuals that you were contemplating having be part of the documentary that didn't make it in?
Yeah, so obviously we meet all the competitors. I think there's about 11 of them, and we only kind of get portraits of about 4 main portraits and then one more fifth of Tommy. And yeah, there were so many other people. I actually ended up filming with, I'd say, 3 other people that didn't end up, maybe 4, that didn't end up kind of getting as much coverage. Although they do appear, it was just, I think it would have been a disservice to the overall storytelling to, try to get every single thing in and every single character. I think it's hard enough to follow 4 people's lives. And, I just wanted to make sure that we represented a cross-section of trans male experience, people from different, backgrounds, and people of different, color and familial experience, different ages, different geographies, and honestly too, like most importantly, different body types. Like not everybody is the traditional, jacked, so-called masculine figure of a bodybuilder. Like all different forms of masculinity and thus bodybuilding, bodybuilders are represented, and all body types are represented and celebrated on stage. And like for me, that's what was so cool about this competition.
You mentioned earlier about Mason competing in regular bodybuilding competitions, and he got barred because they found out that he was trans. How did that make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I was there right with him when he got the letter. It was really, it was rough because he just loves the sport so much. It's a sport that he credits with literally saving his life. The ability to change his body and feel like to be able to look in the mirror and see what he wants to see reflected back at him. It really changed his life. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty gutting. I mean, behind the camera, obviously, I'm trying to just capture and not be emotionally involved. But yeah, as a trans person who's experienced something like that before, obviously, it was heartbreaking. But what's so cool about him is he's like, okay, I'm going to feel sorry for myself for 5 seconds, and then fuck it, I'm going to find another place that doesn't care. And that's what he did.
So there's a moving scene that involves Dominic. I don't want to give it away, but it's an emotional scene, and you get emotional in that scene. Why did that touch you so? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a moment where I can't help but, that was one of those moments where I was behind the camera and I actually couldn't really, moderate my own response, because it was just so emotional and so important and so transformative to him that, yeah, like I held it together when I was with him, but the minute I stepped outside, I just kind of broke down. And yeah, I don't even know why I turned the camera on myself, other than just because it was just such it was such a moment of connection, and I didn't think I would use it in the film. I didn't know. I wasn't conscious. I was just like, okay, this is real. This is happening, and this is what I'm feeling. I'm literally right there with him, in an experience that I had maybe a decade before or more, 15 years before. And it was just really moving. And I think that we ultimately decided in writing and editing to include moments like those, not a ton, but just moments where that fourth wall is broken, and where me as a trans filmmaker, shared moments with the characters, with the subjects, that a non-trans person would never have shared or even known what was really going on. And that's just one of those reasons it's so important to let folks of all different tell their own stories, because the storytelling you get is going to be so much more authentic and intimate, and, you know, not, as I like to call it, like from the outside looking in, but rather from the inside looking out.
So, T. Cooper, you have worked with David Duchovny on your first film, The Beaufort Diaries, an animated short. Tia Leone is an executive director on your documentary Man Made. People might remember David Duchovny from the great TV series, The X-Files. How did you end up meeting this Hollywood power couple?
So David he just voiced the character of my first animated film called The Beaufort Diaries, which was actually based on my own novel, graphic novel of the same name. And it was about a polar bear who, like, you know, his native habitat is disappearing and he has to go to Hollywood and adapt and make a life for himself. And so David played that character. And then Tia Leone is actually the executive producer on Man Made. And, you know, like, I guess, you know, how did I meet Tia? You know, Tia, I met, we go way, way, way back because my second novel, which was a book called Lipsticks or Two Angry Blondes, came out. And back in the day when people used to actually read books, and other people used to care that people read books, like People magazine, you know, one of those things where, you know, the stars are on the red carpet and they're like, what are you reading? What's on your bedside? And Tia mentioned my book that she was reading at the time. And so I literally just sent her a little like thank you note through our agents. And, you know, that was probably back in 2006 or so, because it really did help, you know, boost sales. And we've been really close ever since, both friends and also collaborators on various projects. We've worked on TV projects together. And my wife, Allison, is my co-writer for film and TV stuff. And, you know, we developed a show with Tia and sold it to Showtime. It never got made. But, yeah, like, basically Tia, when I told her about that I was working on this film, she was just like, this is amazing. I want to support however I can. And, you know, her generosity really helped us get, you know, keep filming, honestly, because it costs money. Even when you're doing it all yourself, like I did, it still costs money to travel and edit and, you know, just everything. It's, you know, making an indie documentary is not the path to riches. But yeah, and that's how I met David. Obviously, Tia was with him at the time. And he was, again, super cool and helpful to agree to play the polar bear in my little film.
So what's the big plan with your film Man Made? It's now on streaming services as of the 7th of November?
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon and Google and iTunes and Vimeo. It will eventually live, I believe, on Amazon. Yes, you can stream it. And, you know, I just feel like, you know, we took this film around the world, literally from Hong Kong to all over Scandinavia to everywhere in the U.S. and Canada. We were in, you know, probably screened 20 times, 20 festivals in Canada. And, you know, it's just been a real privilege to see audiences of all types connect with the film, like from queer and trans audiences, but also just, you know, super cis mainstream film festival people who wandered into the film and were just like transformed by it in some ways and just kind of blown away that they had never thought about this kind of, like I said, this corner of the trans community, because I don't think trans men, and especially trans men of color, get a lot of airtime. And so, yeah, it was just really cool to see so many people respond to it. So, yeah, I mean, I hope that whoever's listening is curious and wants to, you know, be entertained, because yes, it's a social justice documentary in a way, but it's also just a super fun competition film where you literally are like, okay, who's going to win? So, you know, for me, it was just really exciting to be able to like tell these stories, but then also have this backdrop of a competition.
So T. Cooper, you are an award-winning filmmaker. You're a best-selling novelist. You're a journalist. You work in television as a writer, as a producer. The question that I have for you, T. Cooper, is simply this. Where do you feel most comfortable, most yourself? Doing what?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have that luxury to even think about that right now. Maybe I should get it. I don't, you know, for me, I guess it's just about like figuring out the next thing. Like, I'm happiest doing the next thing. And not in a way that I'm not enjoying the current thing, but just like, I never had made a documentary. I'd never filmed before. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And I'm creatively so happy out in the world, following people, helping to tell their lives, filming people, and just kind of, for me, changing my storytelling to adapt to whatever the circumstance, whether, I kind of like letting the stories dictate what format they should be told in, whether that's film or TV or fiction, or short film. And, I just, for me, it's just, I'm always lucky and grateful for having the next opportunity and to learn something new. I love being on set. I've been doing a little more directing. I would love to, I've been writing and producing episodic television. Right now I'm a writer producer on The Blacklist, which is an NBC show. And I would love to even maybe direct episodic, would be super fun. So yeah, for me, I'm just kind of happiest, like, figuring out how best to tell stories, whatever medium or genre that be.
So, November 20th is Trans Day of Remembrance. For yourself, T. Cooper, how important is having that day be recognized?
Well, yeah, we decided to release the film during Transgender Awareness Week, which is, of course, the week that leads up to the Transgender Day of Remembrance. And, in a culture that is so eager to erase us, erase our rights, and, take away our ability to thrive, whether it be taking away, access to medicine or fair employment or housing or whatever it is, those things are all obviously designed to make life harder for us and make it harder for us to thrive. And so that's why I think it's so important for films like these, not just mine, but, man-made and films like it, to call attention and to literally raise awareness that we're here, we're not going away. And of course, to culminate in the Trans Day of Remembrance is so important, because that erasure that I'm talking about, when you get to the violence that is perpetrated against trans folk, especially trans women of color, like, that is so important to highlight that day, especially, that literally erasing us by killing us. It's just one step past all this legislative stuff that unfortunately is going on. So it's just, it's super important and moving for me to just take a moment and a day to think about all these people who are literally erased, murdered, just for existing. It's truly, it's almost too much to even think about that we're still in this age where somebody of whatever class is being exterminated simply because of who they are.
You mentioned earlier that you work on The Blacklist. That's a huge show on what, NBC. You work on that show. You happen to be trans. Are you finding that there are more trans actors, producers, people that may be in front of or behind the camera in Hollywood these days? Are you finding that?
Yes, but very little. It just, we're like, the door is just cracked, and like a few of us are pushing through it and doing our work, and ideally hiring and creating other opportunities for people to come behind us, because like, that's the whole point of getting to be in these positions, because hopefully soon people like us will be in the positions of power to make decisions about what stories get told and who gets to tell them, who gets to act in them, etc. So yeah, it's just barely percolating. I think I don't know, because I'm not into the first things, but I think I was the first trans man in a writer's room. I know there's a couple other guys now. There's I think 2 of them who are in other shows. And maybe there's more too, and I just don't know. But yeah, there's just a few of us. And then of course on the trans woman side, obviously Transparent created so many opportunities for trans women to be in both writing and producing roles. People like Our Lady J, her career has just soared since then. And it's just, I just want more of it. I want the door to be pushed open a little bit more, so we don't have to fight so hard just to have a place at the table.
So how can people find out more about Man-Made? Is your website?
Yeah, it's manmadedoc.com. Just MANMADEDOC.com. And you can see a trailer. Hey, you can buy swag. I have these dope T-shirts that everybody loves, and I sold out of them, but I just reordered, and they're super soft and they're cool looking, and the money supports recouping the cost of the film. But yeah, you can check out the website, and there's little profiles on each of the subjects, and there's some press you can read, and it should also point you to where you can actually screen the film.
So T. Cooper, I can't let you go without asking T. What does T stand for?
T stands for T. That is my whole name, legal name.
Fantastic. Okay, 3 quick questions. Are you ready?
I think so.
Red or white?
Red.
Day or night?
Night.
Leather or lace?
Leather.
T. Cooper, thank you so much. Thank you for your film. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time.
So often in my life, just surviving was an accomplishment. Just taking a shower, just not killing myself was an accomplishment.
Making muscles in the mirror when you're 4 years old and thinking that's what you're going to grow up to be. I mean, it's just making that 4-year-old in the mirror match.
So let's bring the lightweights on stage.
I wasn't really sure if I was going to do it until I actually walked into the doors.
You feel trapped for a long time. Real trapped. The world just opened up. Just felt free.
It's definitely going to be a showdown tonight. We got some tight bodies.
Know that all these people, they all had the same courage you had to stand up there being judged by the world and not care. I've been called every name in the book, but I am doing what I need to do to be my authentic self.
That's me. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
I was sent to the pastor and called out in the middle of a church, dapped some holy oil on his hand and started slapping me on the head and praying for demons to come out.
Give me a big though. I missed you.
I miss you too, Mama.
We're all different. We all have different stories. We all transition differently.
I wouldn't want him to not be himself because I might not be attracted to him anymore. He was my person, I thought.
How can you not be okay with your kid being happy? Dead kid or kid? Boy or girl, I don't care.
We're not monsters. We're not demons. We're humans just like everybody else. We're just a little different.
I guess there's a time in your life where you want to stop hiding and just kind of live your life and not care what people think.
Thank you, gentlemen. Y'all give them a big hand.
It's just nice to be called what I want to be called.
Hi, this is Nicky Ward, and like me, you're listening to CIUT 89.5 FM.
Man-Made, the new documentary about transgender male bodybuilders by director T. Cooper, is available now on streaming services. Self-proclaimed feminist Megan Murphy, trans issues, and Transgender Day of Remembrance. We talk about these issues and more with my next guests. Trans activist Susan Gapka and founder of subversive rock group Random Order, Lynx. My first guest is the founding member of the subversive rock group Random Order, Lynx. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mark?
I am well, thank you. Thanks for asking. It's always nice to be asked something, you know? My next guest is a trans activist, a politician, plus she's the first trans woman to receive the key to the city from the mayor of Toronto. That would be John Tory. She is Susan Gapka. Hi.
Hey, how's everybody tonight?
Everyone is well. How are you?
I'm I'm good.
Good.
I'm very, very good.
You look good. You look rested. You look fabulous, as you both do. But first of all, I always say this, but thanks for taking your time to be here in studio to have your voices and your stories be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you both for that.
Well, thanks, Kara.
Thank you.
You've both been on the show before, and I want to use this first segment to talk about what you guys have been up to recently. And Lynx, let's start with yourself. You, over the last few months, released a new single. It's a remake of the 1970s classic hit Shame, Shame, Shame. Congrats on your new single.
Thank you so much.
I'm curious to know, how has the single been doing for you?
It's been doing great.
The response has been great?
Yeah, incredible. And it's been really great in Canada and the UK and Germany. Yeah.
And you were recently on tour.
Yes, I was. I was on tour in the UK and Germany. First time in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how was the response to the tour?
Fantastic. Yeah, it was mostly Pride festivals and some private birthday parties and fun things like that. Yeah.
Why redo a classic disco song? Why that song in particular?
Well, that song in particular, for a couple of reasons. I was heavily influenced by Motown and loved disco. And I had this idea that I wanted to sing this song because originally it has a male and a female voice on it. And I wanted to do both voices. And as a person identifying as trans, I thought it would be really cool to do that. And also to make it a more contemporary, like bring it in with an electronic element. And to have an entire campaign tour around having no shame and be who you are. So I just did it.
Powerful message.
Thank you.
No
shame.
No shame. I don't think I can say that. I think I got a lot of shame about me. But that's a little too much information. 2015, Lynx, Black Lipstick Kiss, Best Original Song in a Film, Fetish Film Festival, Kiel, Germany, S&M Sally. Your track won Best Original Song in a Film, Black Lipstick Kiss.
Yes.
How does that make you feel to hear that?
Oh, it was wonderful.
Best Original Song in a Film.
Yeah, 2015 was quite a year for me, and it kept getting better and better every year after that. But that was the first year where I wanted to get more music into film. And that film, S&M Sally, it toured for 2 years in LGBT film festivals and fetish film festivals, as well as a comedy, and written by a lesbian director from LA. And that's what got me solo and pursuing like different types of performances, opening in the theaters, ahead of the film. And that's what got me touring Europe again. And the award and the film itself won 9 awards as well.
Any interest in doing another film, placing a song in a film, doing a soundtrack potentially? Any interest in that?
Oh yeah, all of my tracks are licensed, so they get pitched to films and TV series, and I would definitely do a song for a specific show. I would be interested in that for sure, because I've written for theater. So yeah.
Susan Gapka, let's bring you in here for a hot minute, find out what's going on with yourself. But I want to start here. 2017, Key to the City of Toronto. You got that from Mayor John Tory, and I understand you got a phone call from the mayor, and that's how this all started?
Yes.
Walk me through this.
The phone rings. I got a message from the mayor. He's going to call me back the next day. It's Saturday and Sunday of a weekend, and Monday nominations open for elections. I figure he's going to invite me to ask me to endorse him. And I'm going, how do I answer that? And then so I get the call. I'm riding a bike between Hot Docs Films and Marley's playoff season. And I kind of answered how can I serve the city? I stopped the bike, and he said, if you'd accept, we'd like to honor you with the key to the city. I said yes. We had a conversation about, governance, that we're going to agree on some things and disagree on others, but we should be respectful about that. Perhaps that's why I ended up on the short list. But it was an event later that year in May, 2017. In that conversation, did not have a chance to ask him how long I had to keep. Because usually you don't announce these things on Facebook. At least I probably wouldn't be on the list if I posted everything on social media. So then I thought, I wonder how long I've got to keep this to myself, because this is like big news. And I hope it doesn't overshadow that other award I'm getting next month. And, but it was announced on Monday, on the Monday afterwards, or Tuesday, and I started getting congratulations. And so I didn't have to keep that to myself for very long, but, it's just a key, right? Like, key to what? Like door number 1, door number 2,
That's what I was gonna ask.
Key to a decent home, a bank vault, like a decent job, a good singing career, and it's really a metaphor, but it's history. So a reporter wants to talk to me and says, so it's key, right? Like, what's the big deal? I says, well, not everybody gets the key, and yeah, it's an award, and so I looked it up, and I guess it is kind of a big deal. But
especially
I got a lot of attention because of it,
especially,
and I still do.
Especially the key to Canada's largest city.
I should have brought it in for you to see, because it's really quite the thing. They made a special one for me, but Rush got a key. And the Raptors got a key.
You're in good
I'm
company.
in pretty darn good company,
Yes.
aren't I?
I'm curious to know, having that accolade behind your name now, has that elevated your political career, your activism?
Well, the two things I wanted to talk to you about since last time I was here during the election period, that was a very difficult election, and I'm very politically minded, as many of you know.
This was the municipal
elections. It was it would have been just over a year ago. And because the rules had changed and a lot of big boy politics, I guess. I don't know. Big P politics were involved. It was, I thought I could win a seat on the school board, and I was not able to achieve that. And it was a really difficult time for a lot of people, not only myself. It's easy to think how hard it is for yourself, but a lot of people got, especially, and I just want to make a comment about the disadvantaged candidate. If you've got big machinery or big money to help you out, if you're white and you're a man, you usually do a lot better than if you're a trans person or a person with a disability or a lower income person without that connection to a political dynasty. So that was hard. But a year later, I have some cool news to share with you. I was looking for something to do, and I applied to be the Toronto Police Service have created a subcommittee on mental health and addictions, and I thought maybe I can provide some of my background to help out, and I was overjoyed to be appointed, and we're starting to meet now, and it's a good committee. We'll see how that goes. We're always a rocky relationship with the police force, but, just think of how bad they'd be if we didn't try to make them better. And the other thing that happened for me was I got elected to a position with my union, CUPE, from my work at the 519, and I'm now on Ontario Executive Board for Pink Triangle, so I represent LGBTQ issues federally, nationally, and in Ontario. Now, it's the reappointment process going on right now, but I get to do what I was doing before, only trans inclusion a lot of in labor movement and helping people get a bit of it, get like income and jobs.
Fantastic.
So I've had a good rebound, I think, off of that.
Sounds like it.
Do I have time for one more?
Absolutely.
And we the Trans Lobby Group that, I forgot to mention that, the Trans Lobby Group that has been now turned into the Toronto Trans Coalition. And just got back from Montreal reporting on the research findings. So because of our legislative changes, human rights, legal documents, and access to healthcare, but still people aren't doing well. People are struggling around employment, around housing, education. People still, you don't have to be trans and non-binary to have a hard time to find a decent job or housing nowadays with the housing prices. So we've done a research project and tried to address that. We have an office at Sherburne Health Center, and we just want to address some of those outstanding needs because some people are still really, many of us aren't doing as well as we could in this beautiful country.
Well said. Well said. On that note, let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
This is Brad Fraser, and you're listening to CIUT 89.5 FM.
Megan Murphy, a Vancouver journalist and self-proclaimed feminist, banned from Twitter for expressing her views on gender identity, lectures that transgender rights endanger women and undermine their rights. In October 2019, she had a lecture at a Toronto Public Library called Gender Identity, What Does It Mean for Society, the Law, and Women. Despite hundreds protesting Megan Murphy's event, the library went ahead with the event, stating, as a public institution, it has an obligation to protect free speech regardless of belief. The library also noted Megan Murphy has never been charged or convicted of hate speech offenses. Susan Gapka, basic general question to both of you, Susan and to Lynx, but Susan, I'm going to start with yourself. What's your thought generally about what happened?
Can I finish your sentence?
Sure.
Has not been charged with an offense
yet. That's what I said. There's always a first time.
What are your thoughts?
Well, she's well on the way, isn't she?
Especially making a name for
Well, I have
herself.
a lot of thoughts, but let me start with this. I'd like to talk less about Megan Murphy and more about the fantastic, the fabulous, the resilient, the survivors, the trans people in Canada, the trans and non-binary people who every day do things that are just about finding food, place to live, making music, doing radio shows. We are in every segment of the population. We come in all shapes, sizes, skin colors, backgrounds. And I really want to make sure that I begin by lifting up people like us. Murphy uses a typical alt-right gaslighting procedure, same as the street preachers. I found out someone wrote a book about this, how Donald Trump is gaslighting America, and I'm really interested to read more about that. But I came up on this before I found that out. Could a book to function at any commerce, what do they call it? Gay and lesbian commerce, any hotel, but picks a library, public library, and announces it to get feedback and criticism. Now, I sat in the room with Megan Murphy in Senate in Ottawa, and she testified on behalf of the Conservative Party, who wanted to do two things: oppose trans rights and exclude trans women from certain women's places like washrooms. I'm getting emotional just talking about it. Washrooms and women's shelters in particular. So when Megan Murphy goes to the library and says she never opposed trans rights, she's lying. When she says she never attempted to exclude trans women from women's spaces, that's clear fabrication. But so now we're excited, we protest, we march, and I just want us to pick up on this one little thing. The resistance to Megan Murphy was fabulous, was strong, it was outstanding, and should be noted. But it was purposeful, because now there's people like Megan Murphy say, we're just having free speech, and you're attacking us. And then they play the role of the victim. And so let's just be mindful of that. So that's my breakdown of that. I think you're nodding your heads in agreement. And I think we need to be careful about taking the bait too much. I just want to talk about why the libraries are an important public institution. If you were someone who wanted to see a different kind of world, the one thing that Megan doesn't do, what she does push out, racialized trans women. More than white-skinned people like myself, people with disabilities, because they're going to even have less access than someone like myself with my Canadian privilege. But I'll probably be going to the library, because I think the library, if you were to create a society that elected their leaders on slogans and chants, you wouldn't want young people going to the library and reading books. You wouldn't want young people getting a good public education. And so this is a very specific attack on an informed citizenry, because those young people that go to libraries, those poor people that go to libraries to use the internet and read books, and I was one of them when I was homeless, will actually get educated and become informed. And they might not vote for the slogans. They might actually ask, what is your policies? Right. And so I think this is a very specific attack. I hope that we don't spend too much time talking about Megan, but I just want to provide some awareness of what I think is happening in today's society. And we gotta stand up and protest, but we also got to
not take the bait.
Yeah.
Be careful. Yeah. Thank you for helping me out. Just to be careful of proceed with caution.
Lynx, in general.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm glad that you spoke first, because I didn't know this about the Senate. And
that was powerful.
And I am not surprised, because the first thing I thought when all of this was happening was, she's obsessed with trans women. And it's flawed logic. And it is very political in terms of, you putting that frame there that it was, brought to Senate. And I really think that, she could go after the real violent people, instead of, it's not freedom of speech. It's hate speech. It absolutely is. And, I don't believe that that it's appropriate to have it in the public libraries. And I was glad to hear that the Pride organization in Vancouver as well as Toronto are not allowing that branch to host Pride events because of this. And if you take a look at the letters in LGBT, QIA plus. and the T is quite a bit different, and it has been, a group of oppressed people, and still is, and I think we have to uplift these communities, not the opposite. And I have to wonder why she's putting all of her efforts to retracting the few rights that we've gotten so far.
Can I add
Absolutely.
two little points there? When Megan or Platt or Jordan Peterson testified in Senate, you can't talk and interrupt or they'll throw you out. So we had a lipstick brigade. Every time someone said something that we didn't like, we would start putting lipstick on, which was
it real lipstick?
Yeah, we had lipstick. Yes,
That's awesome.
And so we even took some photos. And the other thing about Murphy is that, people like us, we build things.
Mm-hmm.
Radio show, public information, build community around sharing our life stories and building up trans people, making music as an out trans person and having some success. And I like to change laws apparently and stuff like that. That was the bill actually that we drafted like in 2003. What has Murphy built? Murphy's a destroyer.
I think what she's doing, and this is just my personal opinion, I think what it is like you were saying, gaslighting, but using that as a way to get social media followers to build her reputation that way. The same with the Christ Forgiveness Ministries. What they're doing, I think it's propelled by Donald Trump and the fact that he essentially does that. He goes after people. He bullies people. And he's the president of the most powerful country in the world. And he's giving license to people to act this way.
Yeah, the trickle-down effect is not going to be good. And gaslighting is a common political maneuver to get these bills pushed through. So while they're gaslighting over here, they're working on these bills over here. To retract any rights. And
such a good point about the deflection, the camouflage from what's really happening. This is what we're looking
at, distraction,
but there's something else going on.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's political. I really don't think it's personal with her. I think she's got a political agenda.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. Well said. On that note, let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vanicola, and I'm an actor and a writer, and I was first on Rainbow Country with Mark Tara on CIUT 895 FM, discussing the massacre at Pulse Club in Orlando. I realized how important it was for our community to have a radio station, specifically for our issues, to talk about people in the LGBTQ community and to provide an outlet for our stories, to discuss our politics, culture, and give voice to the issues that matter to us, and of course our artists and the things that we do globally and right here in Toronto, and talk about culture. And without people like Mark Tara providing a space for this with a radio show like this, then we wouldn't have that voice. So support, tune in. Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Harder, porn star, burlesque performer, and the creator of Porn to Be a Star. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara at CIUT 89.5 FM.
Transgender Day of Remembrance, founded in 1999 by Gwendolyn Ann Smith, a trans woman, was created to memorialize the murder of transgender woman Rita Hester in Allston, Massachusetts, now recognized in over 185 cities in more than 20 countries. Susan Gapka, I'm curious to find out especially from yourself, why is it important for us to recognize Transgender Day of Remembrance? For yourself, why is this important?
So I'm thinking back of when, was it 98, 99?
99.
Took the second year until they actually had a memorial. There was another murder that happened, and the first one was in Vancouver, in Canada. Tammy Starlight had one, and we brought it to Toronto a year later, and there was a few small ones. And now that it's gotten so big and large. And so we have to remember this was preceding a trans lobby. This precedes trans rights, elected trans people, and some in the United States, a couple here in Canada. This precedes the idea that we could have access. We didn't have surgery funded by the Ontario government. We didn't have. We needed transsexual surgery to have your legal documents changed. You didn't have human rights. We had human rights, but you had to get a lawyer to prove that you actually had them, and then you had to win a court case to prove it. So this results in a lot of harassment, discrimination, and violence and murder, brutal murders. And the murder of trans people, transsexual, transgender people, but I use trans as the umbrella term. And I do try to include non-binary because representation. That violence is horrendous. And what happens with Trans Day of Remembrance, I'll call it TDOR for short, is that people aren't like shot or stabbed once or twice. It's like 20 or 30 times. Bodies are decapitated and burned. And as we were talking about earlier before the break, or during the break, that in South America are some of the highest rates. Brazil, racialized trans women who are vulnerable and working in unsafe conditions, often in sex work, and don't have the legal protections that many of us have. Mm-hmm. And so, and are at risk because they don't have access to health care, housing, good jobs. So it's important to remember this every year. And like in that history and knowing that we're doing better in Southern Ontario and some places in Canada, but we still have a lot of suicidality. Do you know, like those, I know you want to move on to the next point, but just the fact is TransPulse, which is about 10 years old, but other studies across Canada and the United States, suicidality among trans people, 77% ideation, which means that we thought about it, we contemplated suicide. 47% of trans people reported attempting suicide, and I can count myself as one of those in whatever way, whatever that dark decade I had living on the streets. And you know when that's reduced? When family and parents support trans people.
Yeah. And I think...
Do you know what happens?
What's that?
Drops by 93%.
Wow.
I think, too, it's important for people to know, because it was only a few years ago that personally I first heard of Transgender Day of Remembrance. That was just a handful of years ago. Lynx, for yourself, what does this day mean for you?
Well, for me, I feel like, you know, it's a day to realize it could have been me. You know, it could have been you. You know, it's a time to realize that this is still happening. And you mentioned suicide and, you know, two of the staff at the 519. And, you know, it really is, it's still happening. And it's all of what you said, murder and suicide and beatings. And we have to
know the history.
Know the history. And
I think that's what's most important, is that it's not a fad.
It's not a trend. It's not a
trend.
fad. It is.
It's real people,
reality.
real lives, real history.
It's reality, and it's reality for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important that we, keep this in mind. And it's one day that happens out of a year where it brings people together to mourn as well as realize and to celebrate, because we want to mourn people, but we also want to celebrate their lives.
Mm-hmm. Susan Gapka, yes. How long has Toronto been recognizing Transgender Day of Remembrance?
So, whether it's official or not, there's different variations around whether it was 1998 or 1999. Mm-hmm. I think where the discrepancy happens is originally Rita Hester was 98, but by the time there was another incident, another death, and sort of it picked up steam and became more official. And it was a couple of years later, 2001, 2002, and I wish I had my notes in front of me, but I don't. Mobile's over there.
You don't need notes, girl.
Not usually. So it happened in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And I was with EGAL Canada back then on the board, and we decided we wanted to have some in Canada. So Toronto had the first one, UT. We went to the legislature and demanded access to health care. There was a couple, the 519, I think, had one of her very first one about that time. And I think the 519 where I do work has probably the signature event, if you call it that. They do it up big.
So 20 years, 20
so what do? We have the memorial. There's a lot of celebrating the lives and that. And but after what happened is we'll go down, have the memorial, the candlelight service. We'll read the names. And we used to be able to read the names, but now it's too long of a list. But so people will read the names of or hold it from the latest, the last year of people who've been murdered. And but then we go back and we have music, and I think someone I know is playing there.
I'll be there.
Yeah, music and food because it's been really, really heavy. It's really, really heavy. 519. It's really heavy on heart. So we didn't want to leave people feeling so sad and depressed after. Mm-hmm. So there is try to bring some celebration. But I just want to be careful because I'm seeing a lot of Trans Awareness Week and Trans Awareness Month. And we really need to, as you said, remember the purpose of the day is...
It's November 20th.
It's November 20th.
Yeah, and it's the 20th year at
this year.
From 519.
What I know. Yeah. And as Susan was saying, it's a vigil and a ceremony and then a dinner and then more entertainment. So, and the event, it's free food. And it's fantastic food, and that's what you're talking about. Great kitchen.
When does this event happen?
On the 20th, and it's
in the evening.
Yeah, it's in the evening.
6 till 9,
6 to 9 or 10 or something like that. But it's outside and inside, and there'll be a chill out space and the big ballroom with the tables set up for dinner and cash bar. Yeah.
And, I've just touched base with Sherry DeNovo today. There's going to be still a moment of silence at Queen's Park. There will be a flag raising, so an indoor-outdoor activity there.
That's during the day.
During the day, that's usually, around noon and 10:30 a.m. or just before question period. There's another event at City Hall. I'm actually going to – are you sitting down?
Yes, we are.
I've registered for – and banks are now doing an event. So I've registered because I'm with, Pride at Work Network a bit. Been going to a few of their events, and I just registered for on the 21st. One of the major banks is going to have an event. So
that's cool.
It's good that big corporations are recognizing us. It's a different world. I mean, banks, you got to have a bank account. You got to be able to get a credit card in your authentic identity.
Right.
Yeah.
let's go around the table and find out how people can find out more about you guys, find out what you're up to, new music, changing the world. Susan Gapka, Lynx, let's start with yourself. How can people find out more about you?
I have a website. It's randomorder.ca, and you can find me there, and I'm on all the social media. It's all linked together, so basically under Random Order. And I'm happy to be here. Was there another question? No. Just
that was
finding out about where I'll be. And I'll be at the 519 on the 20th, providing cathartic relief at the end of the evening. I'll be like, let's dance!
And Susan Gapka, how can people find out all about Susan Gapka?
Well, I had a website, for the election campaign, but, I'm pretty active on social media, Twitter, Susan Gapka, at Susan Gapka, SUSANGAPKA. I'm same on Facebook. I'm trying to lower my profile, looking at semi-retirement, but, I'm going to pop up this beautiful thing about working with QP. They're like a bunch of overachievers, the people at executives. So you'll see me at the odd rally. You'll see me at Trans Day Remembrance events and probably doing some other media stuff. And, I'll still be around our neighborhood, Mark, to see you on Church Street sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yay.
Thanks.
I'm Sky Gilbert, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Terra on CIUT 89.5 FM.
By the way, if you're in the Toronto area, feel free to drop by the 519 Community Centre on November the 20th for a free event commemorating Transgender Day of Remembrance. The 519 Church Street from 6 to 10 p.m. Doors open at 5 p.m. This is a free event with highlights of the evening including performances, candlelight vigil, a dinner, a cash bar, music, and dance. Again, this is a free event. Everyone is welcomed. The 519 Community Centre, 519 Church Street. If you would like to be a guest on Rainbow Country, get in touch. My email, mark@marktara.com. To keep up to date on all things Rainbow Country, follow me on socials. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, at Mark Tara Music. The podcast for Rainbow Country is on iTunes, Podomatic.com, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, and on Spotify. And this past week, we were number 2 on Podomatic's Gay and Lesbian chart, and that is because of you. So, get Rainbow Country free wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And of course, everything is hooked up at my website, marktara.com. Next week, Michelle Shocked. Finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, we live in days of making dreams come true. So believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Terra on CIUT 89.5 FM.